Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really quite significant in military aviation, China's J35 stealth fighter, specifically this new capability or reported capability to carry the PL-17 long-range missile internally.
Yeah, that's the bit that's got everyone talking.
Exactly. It's not just, a new plane or missile in isolation. This could genuinely reshape air power dynamics. So understanding it is pretty vital for anyone following strategic competition.
Absolutely.
Our info today is drawn from recent analysis floating around defense circles. And our mission really is to unpack what this combination stealth plus long-range strike actually means, the tech behind it, and the potential responses.
Sounds good. Where should we start? The plane itself.
Yeah, let's start there. The J35, what is it, fundamentally?
Okay, so the J35, it's essentially a medium-sized, twin-engine stealth fighter. Think fifth gen. And it's derived from their earlier FC-31 prototype, designed for flexibility to land-based and carrier operations.
Right, carrier ops too, that's key. And the stealth aspect, what features are we talking about?
Well, it's got the usual hallmarks you'd expect. Carefully shaped surfaces, edge alignment to deflect radar waves away, serrated panel lines, on landing gear, doors, and bays, and radar-absorbing coatings, of course.
All designed to make it hard to spot on radar.
Precisely. Minimize that radar cross-section as much as possible.
Okay. And under the hood, the engines.
It's running twin WS-19 turbofans. And these are interesting because the promise is supercruise capability.
Supercruise, meaning?
Meaning it can fly supersonic, sustain supersonic speeds without using the afterburners.
Which saves a lot of fuel and reduces the heat signature.
Exactly. A big plus for endurance and staying hidden.
Okay, good performance. But back to the main headline. Carrying that PL-17 missile internally, why is that such a huge step for a stealth plane?
Because normally, for that kind of range, you need a big missile, and big missiles usually hang on pylons under the wings.
Which basically lights you up on radar, right? Kind of defeats the purpose of stealth.
Totally. It ruins a low-observable shaping. So stuffing a long-range weapon like the PL-17 inside the weapons bay means the J-35 can maintain its stealth profile while still threatening targets from a very long way off. It's a game changer for how stealth fighters can operate.
Let's get a sense of scale here. How big is this internal bay we're talking about?
It's pretty substantial. Reports suggest the main ventral bay, the one underneath, is around 7.3 meters long.
7.3 meters.
Okay.
And the PL-17 missile itself?
That's estimated at about 5.73 meters long. So you can see it fits, but it's still a feat of engineering to get something that size tucked away inside a sleek airframe.
Right. It's not like there's loads of spare room. How do they manage it? Especially if they're carrying more than one.
Well, part of it seems to be the missile design itself. The PL-17 is thought to have foldable fins.
Ah, okay, like on some other modern missiles.
Exactly. That makes it much more compact for internal storage.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, very precise positioning within the bay. Careful alignment to maximize space, ensure the doors close perfectly flush. You need that for stealth.
And how many could it potentially carry?
Some analysis suggests maybe up to 4 PL-17s internally.
4?
Right.
Okay, so a very stealthy platform carrying a serious long-range punch. Let's talk about that punch, the PL-17. What makes this missile special?
It's built for one main job, taking out high-value airborne assets from extreme distances. We're hearing range estimates anywhere from 300 to maybe 400 kilometers.
300 to 400 kilometers, that's impressive.
It is. Though, obviously, the exact figures are kept very quiet. Think of it as an aerial sniper rifle.
What tech enables that kind of reach and accuracy?
Well, it uses an active radar seeker for the end game, the final run into the target. That lets it track autonomously. Before that, for the initial and mid-course flight, it uses inertial navigation. But the really interesting part is the mid-course guidance.
How so?
It can use a data link.
A data link, meaning it can get updates mid-flight.
Exactly, and this is where the whole silent marksman idea comes in. The J-35 itself doesn't have to keep its radar painting the target the whole time, which would give away its position.
Right.
Instead, it can launch the missile and then rely on target updates, fed to the PL-17 via data link from, say, another asset. Maybe a KJ-3000 AWACS plane, or even a stealthy drone like the GJ-11.
So the J-35 stays dark, relying on others to light up the target for the missile?
Pretty much. It makes a J-35 incredibly hard to detect, let alone counter, even when it's actively engaging targets hundreds of kilometers away.
Okay, so who are the prime targets for a weapon like this? You mentioned high-value assets.
Yes, primarily the big support aircraft. Things like AWACS, airborne early warning, and control planes. They're the eyes in the sky, providing radar coverage and command. And also aerial refueling tankers.
The flying gas stations.
Right. Take those out, and you seriously cripple an adversary's ability to sustain air operations, extend the range of their fighters, and just generally see what's going on.
So it's about blinding them and cutting off their logistical support. That feels like a significant shift in air combat philosophy. Have we seen parallels before with long-range missiles?
We have, to an extent. Long-range air-to-air missiles have always forced tactical changes. A recent example mentioned in the analysis is Russia's Su-35 using the R-37M missile in Ukraine. That also have a very long range.
But the difference here is the launch platform.
Exactly. The Su-35 isn't a stealth aircraft in the same league as the J-35. So the J-35 combines that long reach with the crucial element of surprise afforded by stealth. That forces potential opponents to fundamentally rethink how safe their key support aircraft really are, even hundreds of kilometers behind the front lines.
It seems the J-35 isn't meant to be a lone wolf either. You mentioned networking. Data link.
Absolutely. It's designed from the ground up to operate within a networked battlespace. Secure data links allow it to share sensor data and, crucially, receive targeting information from other platforms, the AWACS, drones, maybe even ground-based sensors or other fighters.
Creating a sort of distributed sensor network.
Precisely. A web. So the J-35 might launch a PL-17 based entirely on targeting data from another source, keeping its own radar off, staying electromagnetically silent or dark right up until, or potentially even after, weapon release.
That collaborative approach really multiplies its effectiveness and survivability.
It does. It makes the whole system much more resilient and dangerous than the sum of its parts.
Okay, this paints a compelling picture. How does the J-35 stack up against, say, the U.S. F-35? That's the obvious comparison everyone makes.
Right. Well, the F-35 is also a fifth-gen stealth fighter, obviously very capable. Internally, it carries 4 AIM-120 AMRAAMs. Those have a range around maybe 180 kilometers, depending on the variant.
Okay, significantly shorter range than the PL-17's reported figures.
Yes, though there's work underway to increase the F-35's internal loadout to 6 missiles using the Sidekick adapter. But the fundamental difference might be in philosophy. The F-35 is designed as a true multi-role workhorse, air-to-ground electronic warfare, ISR, as well as air-to-air.
A jack of all trades, master of many.
You could say that. The J-35, particularly with this focus on internal PL-17 carriage, seems perhaps more specialized towards air superiority, and specifically this anti-axis role of striking those key enablers deep. It looks like a potential trade-off. Maybe less mission versatility than the F-35, but a much longer reach in the air-to-air domain against those specific high-value targets.
Disrupting the enemy's ability to fight effectively right from the start.
That seems to be the idea. Extend that engagement envelope way out.
And what about Russia's Su-57? How does that fit in?
The Su-57 carries capable missiles like the K-77M, with ranges around 200 kilometers.
Yeah.
But from what we understand of its airframe design, its internal weapons bays don't seem to offer the same sheer volume as the J-35's. So carrying multiple PL-17-sized missiles internally like the J-35 potentially can, that seems less likely for the Su-57, at least in its current form.
It really does feel like China's making rapid strides here. The analysis points to nearly 200 J-20s fielded by 2024, and now the J-35 entering service.
Yeah, the pace is remarkable. It suggests perhaps a more centralized and agile defense industrial base and procurement process compared to some Western models. They seem able to move from prototype to fielded capability relatively quickly.
It's impressive on paper, but the big question always is, how effective will it really be in actual combat against a determined, sophisticated opponent?
And that's the unknown, isn't it? It's the multi-billion-dollar question. The J-35 looks great in theory, the PL-17 has incredible stated range, but none of it has truly been tested under fire against a peer competitor. Not like the F-35, which has seen combat, albeit in different environments in the Middle East. Real-world ops always reveal things, strengths and weaknesses you don't see on the spec sheet.
And there are still some technical hurdles, right? Particularly with the engines.
That's right. Early J-35 versions apparently used Russian engine cores. The shift to the domestic WS-19 turbofans is a major step for self-reliance, but the long-term reliability, performance, and maintainability of those engines under stressful operational conditions, that's still something to watch. That will be key to the J-35's overall success.
And you can have the best plane in the world, but you need well-trained pilots to fly it effectively.
Absolutely critical. China's Air Force is expanding rapidly and training enough pilots to handle these complex fifth-gen fighters and employ weapons like the PL-17 effectively. That's a huge undertaking. Realistic, rigorous training and exercises are essential to know if pilots can actually execute these demanding stealth strike missions, handle malfunctions, react to countermeasures.
Makes sense. Now, this isn't just about China's own capabilities. There's the export potential, too. Pakistan is mentioned.
Yes, the J35A variant is reportedly slated for delivery to Pakistan, maybe as early 2026. That could significantly shift the regional air power balance in South Asia, giving them a platform potentially superior to what neighbors operate.
And could we see it offered more widely?
It's definitely possible. China might position the J35 as a relatively affordable, advanced stealth option for countries looking to modernize. Selling it, likely bundled with data links and support systems, would give buyers a leap in capability, but also deepen China's strategic ties and influence.
So, given this potential J35 PL7 threat, how are the U.S. and its allies likely adapting? What countermeasures are becoming priorities?
Well, a stealth fighter carrying long-range missiles internally definitely forces a rethink of relying too heavily on traditional radar systems. They become less reliable when the threat can sneak in close, undetected, and shoot from far away.
So you need different ways to see it.
Exactly. We're seeing more focus on things like advanced airborne electronic warfare jamming and deception pods, also passive radar systems that listen for the aircraft's own emissions instead of actively pinging it. And long-range infrared search and track, or IRC systems, become much more important to detecting the heat signature.
And training is adapting too, I assume?
Yes. Reports indicate joint exercises, especially in the Pacific, are increasingly incorporating simulators and scenarios mimicking low observable threats using these kinds of long-range tactics. You have to practice against the threat you expect to face.
On the offensive side, is there a push to match or exceed that missile range?
Definitely. The U.S. is accelerating the development and fielding of its own next-gen missile, the AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile. The clear goal there is to restore or maintain a BVR beyond visual range advantage for U.S. and allied fighters.
And intelligence must be playing a huge role.
Absolutely vital. Intensified intelligence sharing, especially among the Five Eyes partners, is crucial for tracking J35 deployments, PL-17 stockpiles, how they're training, how they plan to use them. Early warning and deep understanding are key.
Looking ahead, what sort of future upgrades could we realistically see for the J35 platform itself?
Well, this is likely just the beginning. You could imagine future blocks incorporating maybe hypersonic air-to-air missiles, potentially requiring BAE modifications, maybe directed energy weapons in conformable pods, lasers, or microwaves that don't ruin the stealth, and certainly more AI integration.
AI for what?
For things like autonomously coordinating with unmanned loyal wingman drones, extending sensor reach, carrying extra weapons, performing electronic attack, essentially multiplying the J35's effectiveness and survivability.
It really feels like a constant race, doesn't it? Innovation and counter-innovation in aerial warfare.
It always has been, and it seems to be accelerating. The next decade will really test whether these Chinese advancements in stealth, long-range weapons, and networking can stay ahead of the countermeasures, the training, and the integration efforts of rivals. That balance is key.
Okay, so let's boil it down. What's the main takeaway for listeners from all this?
I think the core point is that the J35 carrying the PL-17 internally isn't just an incremental upgrade. It's a significant development, actively changing the calculus for anti-accessoria denial, especially in the Asia-Pacific. It's a potent combination of stealth and reach that presents a complex challenge.
And the response isn't just about building fancier planes or longer-range missiles in return.
Not solely, no. Hardware matters, of course.
Yeah.
But just as critical, maybe even more so, is the ability to adapt doctrines and effectively integrate all available assets, disperse sensors, different types of weapons, cyber, space, into a resilient network defense. It's about the system, not just the platform.
That really clarifies the stakes. So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Considering this rapid-pace stealth, long-range weapons, networked warfare, what fundamental shifts do you think we'll need to see in military thinking, maybe even alliance structures, to actually maintain air superiority in the coming decades? It forces a pretty deep rethink, doesn't it?